Sounds good. Okay, so without further ado, I will start. Hello and welcome to the Sideshow's very last panel. We've had such a great time this week, and this week we've had just so much knowledge come forward. I am so excited to present to you our very last panel, which is the Job Hunt Q&A with Career Happy, Kay Bach, and WPP. And we loved writing this description just in time for Halloween. Veteran recruiters and career coaches from Career Happy, Kay Bach, and WPP will be answering all of your questions about the job hunt and ghosting, the best LinkedIn stories and networking tips, and also just how to go forward from here. So we will take hunting and we will make it very fun. Job hunting, just like Casper the Friendly Ghost. We have Leslie Kay Bach, Joint CEO and Coach at Career Happy. We have, and also owner of and CEO of Kay Bach. We have Hillary Black, Joint CEO and Coach at Career Happy, VP and Global Learning Lead and Coaching at WPP. And we have Kathryn Freund, who is a coach and lead instructor at Career Happy and Senior Talent Manager at Kay Bach. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us. Take it away.
Thank you for having us. Yeah.
Yeah, thank
you.
For
the mouthful of our various companies that we're part of.
You're very welcome.
We're very multifaceted. All right. Well, welcome everybody. We started, if you're just getting here, let us know where you are in the world. I know I'm here in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. I'm usually in Denver. Hillary is in New York. Leslie is in New Jersey. We've got people from Portland, Brooklyn, Seattle, South Florida, another Brooklyn. Oh, hey, Bay Area. Welcome, welcome. We are very excited that you're here. I'm going to pull up our slides and we will get rolling. So welcome. This is the Job Hunt, our recruiter Q&A with the Sideshow. And I know Sunita told you a little bit about us. I can tell you just a little bit more about who we are in case you don't know us. Overall, so Kay Bach is a recruitment agency specializing in advertising and marketing. And we've been in the industry for over 25 years. Hillary and Leslie were both probably two of the first creative recruiters in the industry, have been doing this a long time. And over the years, we have grown to recruit for, not only creatives, but also strategy, account, production, and beyond for various advertising agencies of all shapes and sizes, as well as brands that have their own in-house creative and marketing teams. And now the talk that you're seeing today is really part of Career Happy, which is our coaching division of the company that we founded. And really where that came out of was, I think we've always been the kinds of recruiters to spend that extra 5 or 10 minutes at the end of a recruiting call, helping people with their portfolios, navigating a negotiation, all of that. And, we are really passionate about doing that. And so that's where Career Happy came from. And Career Happy offers workshops like this, one-on-one coaching, as well as group programs to help creatives and professionals in advertising. And Hillary, do you want to say your journey and where you are now?
My journey has been a little bit, let's just say it's been like a roller coaster. I started out as a wannabe copywriter. I took classes at SVA. I worked at Kirschenbaum and Bonds. I logged in portfolios. I answered phone calls from Wendy, the Snapple lady, for some of you who might remember the Snapple lady. And I realized I didn't want to be a writer because I wasn't any good at it. I was definitely not a good headline person. And so basically I got hired as a recruiter. I moved over with Leslie Kay, eventually became her partner. And in that time, I got my master's in social work. I started coaching more. And during COVID, I have actually moved on, and I am now working at WPP as both an executive recruiter and helping to build out their coaching practice. And it is a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to work on these things with you and also hear your questions. So thank you, Kat.
Hey, thanks, Hill. Yes, I will introduce myself. So hi, I'm Kathryn. I started my career as a creative, a designer and art director in advertising in the agency world. And through wearing many hats at a small agency, as I'm sure like many of you are familiar with, I actually realized that what I love to do is work with people. And I had to hire a bunch of people really quickly. And so I decided to do some investigating into what maybe being a recruiter is like. And that's where I met Hillary and Leslie, having an informal career chat, tell me about recruiting. I knew nothing about it. And 7 years later, here I am, still with Kay Bach. And in that time, I helped us create Career Happy, which is our coaching division. I became a certified coach, PCC by the ICF, which means I've done a lot of training and 500 hours of coaching. Woohoo! And yeah, it's just really fun to be able to offer not only, to empathize, I think, with my candidates, since I am a creative person, and also offer coaching. And I've had a number of fun side hustles over the years, and always am dabbling in different things, whether it's sound healing or making a fun e-commerce brand or Reiki. So that's a little bit about me. I'm going to turn it to Leslie.
Hey everybody, I'm Leslie Kay. Kay Bach, but I go by Leslie Kay for business. And I've been in recruiting for, I realized almost 29 years. So I've been doing this for quite some time, and I still love it. So I started my journey started in the advertising industry at agencies. So I've experienced being in the agency. I started recruiting. I was brought on by a recruiting firm, and then created my own and built it up with Hillary Black. And even though she might be at WPP, we speak probably daily, and we still do a lot of work together because we are very close in that respect. The agency has grown, and every time there is a roadblock, whether it, last year was COVID, it could have been the market dropping, whatever, we've always looked at ways of building the agency up, whether it be through more talent management, coaching, payrolling, what have you. We've always tried to find a new niche that we could add to what our practice is doing. And one of, I think, all of our favorites is when we started doing coaching and doing workshops and Q&As such as this, so that we could help people in a more organized fashion. Rather than the many emails and phone calls, we were able to put our minds together and really help more people at one time, and kind of gather information also for us and feedback on what folks were looking for and what they needed. So I'm excited to hear what you guys want from us and pick our brains, because ask. If it doesn't seem like relevant, ask. If somebody else is thinking the same thing and was hoping somebody else would ask.
Yeah, and I think that brings us to, who are you? Like, we want to know a little bit about who's in the room. So tell us, are you in advertising? Like, what's your current role or specialty? Like, are you a designer, a writer? Are you a producer? And, what are you looking to get out of today? So you can just type it in the chat. Let's see. So Chris is looking for part-time work as a copywriter. Great. Anyone else? Let us know. You can say what your role is and what you're looking for out of today.
And the other reason why this is helpful to put in the chat, because once you get to know each other, even there's a small group of us, you might be able to, one of you might be looking for a partner, or somebody might be freelancing and be like, oh, you know what, maybe I'll contact that person. So you're building out your community today as well. So if you could put what you're here for, what you're doing, that would be amazing. Thank you.
What's even more amazing is for me to see the different people that are logged into this talk, because I see that somebody I have known for 26 years, Mark, is part of this conversation. So it's kind of fun for me. And you're off screen, Mark. Get back on screen. Let's see your face.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about, how today's going to roll in a second, but yeah, please, we would love to see your faces if you're able. We want this to be fun and engaging for you and not just feel like we're talking at you. So, okay, who else we have here? Quist, is that correct? Music production house. Alessandra, looking for full-time work, remote work as a creative director. Andrew is an art director at a startup, looking to go to agency world. Mark, interested in what's happening in talent. Jacob, looking for a junior UX position, how to get into an agency. Michael, pivoting from agency to in-house, entertainment media. Always looking for smart creatives. How to leverage your side projects. Okay, great. And Nancy, copywriter, recently returned to advertising after writing fiction writing. Amazing. Art director who would love to make a switch to copywriting. Amazing. Okay, well, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. And we're going to start off our session with what we start off every session with. Hill, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So just so you know, what we say is comes from our experience, our backgrounds, and it's what we've learned. And so much like, in advertising, it's all subject, like you could take what you want and leave the rest. And just know that this is coming from the years and years of experience we've had. Sometimes Kathryn or myself or Leslie will have opposing views on certain things. And if that happens, we'll say it, we'll share it with each other. You might, that might come up even in this call. So just know that it's just a lot of information that we've taken in, and we're just here to give it to you.
Yeah. And so just to give you some ideas, here are some things we can cover, but it's really up to you in this room and what you want to hear about. So some common questions that we get about the job hunting process are assessing your strengths, what recruiters look for beyond just your skills and your discipline, portfolios, hiring process and recruitment, how that works. How do I work with recruiters? Networking, who to contact, what to say, interviewing. So these are just ideas, little nuggets of things we could talk about. But we want to offer to you now, if there's any questions that you have coming in, put them in the chat, and then we can, I don't know, Hillary and Leslie, should we sort of take them one by one, or do we want to organize them by category if they're related? What do you think?
I think it's going to be hard to categorize it because everybody's going to kind of chime in at different times, and it's important. Kathryn and I recently did a talk at a school, and it makes more sense for us to cater these conversations towards what the audience is looking to gain. And a question that might not be relevant to you is relevant to somebody else. So again, ask away. I know that somebody just wanted to find new, unique ways of finding opportunities outside of LinkedIn. As both Kathryn and Hillary will attest, I do not use my LinkedIn recruiter. I don't recruit from LinkedIn. I use it just to look people's numbers up or something like that. It's not what I grew up with, but it is the best way right now for everybody to connect and to see what's happening. It's a very difficult way of cold replying for jobs, and that's not always the best bet. And in the workshops we've given, we talk about the fact that it's important to use LinkedIn as a networking and connecting with friends, family, anybody that seems interesting to you, because those connections is networking. And by using LinkedIn in a more strategic manner, it can be very useful, but otherwise it is the rabbit hole from where, and you end up going in circles and not really getting what you want out of it. So rather than finding opportunities only on LinkedIn, I think that you can use LinkedIn as a starting point, then going to the websites of the companies that you see that are offering those jobs, and then find out maybe if there's somebody that's there, and try to kind of narrow down your search for opportunities that way, rather than just relying on what you see on LinkedIn.
Hillary, do you have any comments on unique ways to find opportunities outside of LinkedIn? Oh, you're on mute.
You're on mute is like, can you hear me now? And I'm just waiting. I keep telling people at work, I'm like, when will somebody just do this ad? It's just too obvious. For me, things have changed. I never looked at LinkedIn either. It wasn't how I sourced people. I did at times, but I didn't use the recruiter option. For those of you who don't know, you pay extra money to receive this recruiter seat. And when you have that, you get an extra lens into who's open to new opportunities, who's more likely to respond to you, and specifically going a little bit deeper into all sorts of things like location, remote only. For me, when I started out, I would have to see a commercial or see a print ad or look at Adweek in the paper form. But these days, now that I'm on the agency side and internal, I do happen to use LinkedIn Recruiter more. And so there are certain people that don't use it as access. Like Leslie will see maybe something she loves, and that's how she's going to find people, or people are just going to come to her. For me, I will use LinkedIn Recruiter to get a sense who's actually looking. So I think it's really important when you go on the site to make sure that if you want it to be known that you're looking, at least not within your current agency, to make sure you put that in your settings that you are open. It doesn't need to be that screen thing on top of your face. I think there's a way so that you don't have to have open for looking, you could privatize it. I also believe it's about how you reach out to people, or posting on LinkedIn, or posting on different places, not necessarily maybe Twitter, or how you're creating your Instagram feed. These are all different ways that you can connect with people and for people to see that you're part of the conversation. If you're only clicking you're only a listener, in my opinion. But if you actually create content, it allows people to start to recognize who you are. And you could be more, you could share work that you really love that inspired you, or you could go on there and maybe there's an article you read, let's say in Adweek or Ad Age, Creativity, or New York Times, and you could put it up there if it's something that really was intriguing to you, tag the person who wrote it along with your own feelings about that article. So there's just a way for you to connect deeper, to be part of the conversation, as opposed to just liking things. And that way people start to recognize a little bit more who you are. As far as online networking, that's something that I would say. Other ways are different than that, about finding something you've seen that you really love, finding that person's information, and we'll go into how you could do that. Reaching out to them, and we'll dive deeper into how you could specifically reach out to people and make that connection a little bit more closely, as opposed to as informal as it might be on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Kathryn.
Well, and I was gonna say, to add on, yes, it's like LinkedIn. A lot of recruiters are on there. So it actually is a great platform to be on in many respects. And you can get way more views and engagement on your posts than most social platforms. I think LinkedIn has the highest reach. So it can be powerful. And I think something I'm a true believer in is being really intentional about your search. And so maybe instead of just jumping straight to the LinkedIn, or Indeed job boards, I'd recommend zooming out a little bit, slowing down and really asking yourself, okay, where do I want to work? What kind of values do the places I want to work have? what are some of the characteristics of the job I want, the ways of working, the kinds of people I'm working with, and then like really dig into doing some research first before you're just like, boo, 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 sending out all these applications. Because that I think is going to allow you to be really strategic with your time. And as Hillary was saying, like reaching out to specific people who are working at the places you want to work. I'm going to post a couple links in the chat. Like if you're someone, especially in the agency world, sort of doing research and like wanting to just look at different companies, see what's out there. These are two great resources. There's the R3 agency family tree, which shows you like all of the parent company agencies. It's like everybody in there. And then the Creative Ham has a great list by location of different agencies in different places. So just to give you like a basis for, okay, if I'm like, where do I want to work? Start looking at company websites and seeing what work that you like, and then reaching out to people.
Also, there was an article recently written up, and I'm not remembering which trade it was, but it was talking more and more about how people are looking for companies that match their values, right? But in a more specific way as it relates also to whether it's climate change, or do they have certain brands that don't sit well with them? What are the things that matter, right? And so while a major holding company might have a brand you might not like because it's so large, you could look at the family with, the sisters or brothers within that family and see which one of them might align with you. And because then you come from it, and I always relate it to dating, so please forgive me, but it's sort of like this feeling of going on a date. I used to be the person who would come back and say, well, I wonder if they liked me. I wonder if they liked me. And I used to tell my friends, to them, don't do that, because why don't you wonder if you liked them? And so this is a perspective. If you really hone in on what it is that interests you about a place, when you have your meetings, you're going to be more receptive. You're going to take things in. You're going to ask the questions that are right, because you're really going to be, to Kat's point, more connected to the decision you made by reaching out to them, because it was very intentional.
I'm looking at what Jacob wrote about the relationship between a job having a requirement of 3 to 5 years of experience versus what was actually needed to do. I'm not sure I understand the question, Jacob. Do you mind coming off of where are you?
He's up there. I see him. There he is.
Yeah. I'm just wondering what, like, I'm sure you all get this question a lot. I mean, there's just an insanely large number of posts that say 3 to 5 years of experience, but it seems the only things that don't need experience are internships. So it seems weird to me that there would be this expectation that you can pop from having 0 experience to 3 to 5 years without any intervening experience.
Okay, so when you're looking for a job and you're assuming that they don't want somebody with no experience. They are looking to hire somebody that doesn't need hand-holding, that has been in an agency before, that has, written scripts, has written briefs, has, done, social posts, whatever the discipline that they're looking to hire. So they're not jumping from 0 to 3, but the jobs that you're looking for might not be posted where you're looking. So again, if you're looking on LinkedIn and you're saying, I'm not finding what I want, right? Then look and see who's hiring, and then go to their website directly and find out who to contact from their website rather than from LinkedIn, because from the website, there will be a jobs, careers, and there'll be a link there. And that link goes to a different person. The person who's going through the LinkedIn responses is on that side of the room. The person that is answering the emails that came from their websites on the other side of the room. So sometimes they just have a general email, and you can in emails. I've seen that you have a lot of mid-level positions. I've had experience. I don't know if I'm qualified yet for those jobs, but I feel very confident in my ability, and you can push yourself through that way. Because I'm telling you, if you go in with less than 3 years experience for these jobs, they will not review you if they're getting hundreds and hundreds of applications. So that's why the purposeful, engagement on LinkedIn is really important. And I was thinking about, Hillary was saying dating, she used that as a scenario. I was thinking about a bar, and think of a big party at a bar, and it's a big meet and greet. There's the people that sit by the bar with their backs to the crowd, drinking their drink, hoping that somebody might approach them. Then they have the people that have the drink in their hand, but they're facing the group and they're kind of just sussing out who's there, but they're not quite comfortable going into the crowd. You definitely have the person that's totally working the crowd and is walking around and talking to everybody and schmoozing. And then you have somebody who walks up to one person and tries to make that one connection. They don't know if it's going to be the person that they want to work for, date, talk to, but they take the time and energy to make that one connection. And you've got more than a 50-50 shot that that one connection that you're making is going to last longer and is going to lead you to something more so. So, I mean, that's a good way of looking at LinkedIn because it can be very overwhelming in the same way. So engage, be purposeful. And when it comes to the jobs, don't just send out. I had a young man I spoke to yesterday, I think it was, my week smushed together. And I said, have you been looking for jobs? And he's like, yes, today is number 81 that I have answered. And I said, well, I don't care about the quantity. I want the quality of your connection. So in terms of, seeing who's looking, LinkedIn is helpful, but then using it as a platform. Mark was saying that he's here. Mark, you said you were just kind of seeing what's going. Where did you write this? He wrote, hi, Marky Mark. What did you say that you were here to look for?
Well, I mean, I'm curious to just see what's happening out there in terms of the job market in general with creatives, but we also have a lot of empty seats, and I'm seeing a lot of candidates, and I'm just trying to understand what people are looking for, what's shaping the current marketplace,
So not only is there an onslaught of people that are looking at these LinkedIn jobs and randomly answering, there's a recruiting shortage, there is an employee shortage because everybody's looking for that 3 to 5 years. They're not looking junior, they're not looking more senior, they're trying to fill in this mid-level gap, which is kind of a no man's land because it's very different for each category. I feel that agencies are trying to have diverse slates of candidates and look at a variety of different options, but candidates are feeling that they have options at their picking and are playing the waiting game or the counter offer game. And I think that some people we lost during COVID to this industry and they went elsewhere, and some people didn't enter in. But there seems to be this glut, Mark. So I know that most agencies have, like you said, empty seats, and it's like, where are these people? They're there. It's just that nobody seems to be able to get through all the applicants or find the right applicant for the particular position.
But if you're not hiring juniors and you don't have seniors, how do you hope to grow a healthy middle level teams,
I think that's a point that, Jacob, you brought up earlier, right? So if there were 3 to 5 years of experience, and to Mark, we need to start looking at people who don't necessarily have the experience in years, but have the qualifications. And maybe some of them don't have specific qualifications. Maybe they're graffiti artists, or they're songwriters, or they're poets, or whatever it may be, or they just have extreme interest. I think it goes to the question that somebody was asking on the chat also, which was, what are some creative ways to get in? And so if you're a writer and you find out who that person is that's looking, right? Or you just figure out like who posted the job or who's the executive creative director or the recruiter, it's about building that connection. Maybe you send them a really interesting poetic letter, or, you keep it short and sweet, right? It's not a long blasted thing that they have to get through, but you just say, you know what, here's three words, or 4, whatever it is, I want to work there. And here's, I'd be humbled by this opportunity to have you take a peek at my work. I know how busy you are. Like, it's just, we have to start growing people that are not as senior so that we could both help to make sure that we are more of a diverse workforce. And we also need to look at people who might not have the years of experience, but have the emotional intelligence and the work to get it done. And I think that if you do find that creative way, and we'll talk more about it, to get in the door, regardless of what it says. Now, I've gotten people responding to us that have absolutely no link to it, to the conversation of the job where we're posting. We don't really post jobs, and nor did I at Kay Bach. However, if it's like looking for somebody who's a, trapeze artist and you've never done that before in your life, it's not something you're necessarily going to apply for. Maybe you'll apply for like an internship to work for the company. So it's really about just connecting with where your thing is and how closely linked you could be. And just don't give up on that, looking at that refined moment. And also, Mark, look for people who don't have as much experience, but that are going to give it 150%. And they know it because they're just either they're musicians to this point of this crowd, or they're, creative in general. I think that's what we have to start looking at.
Yeah, we've got to find more time and energy to invest in talent in whatever form. I think sometimes it's hard when it's a day-to-day fast-moving machine. That's all.
That is one of the issues. Jacob, just real quick, Jacob, I think you might be looking, I just pulled you up just to see who you were, and you should have opportunities at your fingertips at this point, so you and I can talk offline, but we don't have time to go through everybody this way, but there definitely is no reason that you're not finding what you want, because your expertise is very wanted right now in the industry.
I have not been feeling that, so that would be great to have that discussion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'm just going back to the questions in the chat here. Louise says, networking has been very difficult during quarantine, at least locally. Nationally has been better because of Clubhouse and Twitter. Louise, where are you in the world?
Hi, I'm in Seattle. And
Seattle.
We have been,
okay.
Yeah, we had we were getting back to in-person events for a little bit there in the summer, July and August, and it kind of rolled back. And plus the weather is getting crappy now too. So yeah, it's been a tough year, especially for me. I go to a ton of industry events and adjacent events. So I'm used to really, meeting a lot of new people, and it's been kind of the opposite there. Like I said, the Clubhouse part, the online interactions with community has been great, but that's all been like really geographically diverse. So like getting those local things has been tough. Yeah.
So, here's what we'd recommend is like, I think there's a lot of power, as I think Leslie was talking about this before, in really being strategic with who you're wanting to connect with. So really take a step back and think like, who do I want to be connected with when I'm networking and building these relationships, and why? Like, what's my goal here? Is it to get a job? Is it to find a creative partner? Is it to like build a company with someone? Is it to find a mentor? So really think about, what your why is. And I would start with, in Seattle, like, okay, who do I know already? And, who I already know is maybe connected to the people I want to connect with. I think so often we sort of like forget who is in our network and we're like, yeah, I reached out to everybody, but like, actually maybe there's some like out of the box ideas of people you haven't. I'm going to just pull up a slide of like, just some thought starters. And, maybe to just like jog your brain for like, okay, who are, mentors in my life? Who are people who are like my heroes? Like, oh my God, I would be so excited to work for this person. Maybe there's people in your life who are like those networking connectors. Like maybe they know a lot of people in Seattle who they could help connect you to. Recruiters.
It's funny. It's
like
usually
us,
me connecting people.
So great. So you're a connector. And so what I would do is really like individually reaching out to people. I know cold emailing and stuff feels scary and it feels like, oh, I'm icky networking. But I think there's a way to do it in a way that actually gets you on a call with someone, where you're having a meaningful conversation so that you can create that networking space, and not necessarily like, if in-person events just aren't happening, you're still able to like have a phone call or maybe have a Zoom or something where you're talking to someone. So let's see, hang on.
That's
So
good
this
advice.
is like, thanks. I'm glad it's helpful. I'm glad. Is this helping answer
You're a
your
pro.
question? Like, are we?
It is, yeah. You know, what's cool is,
Okay.
you know, I have often let those networking things be entirely serendipity, or just like, you know, you kind of like start swimming with the same people, and then that kind of, you know, the orbital effects of that bring in compatible things. But like, I really haven't been strategically targeting and like trying to get something out of that, which as a strategist, I probably ought to do. But, you know, the good part is, at least I'm at a point now where I'm not like averse to, I mean, at this point in my career, I'm not averse to those cold calls, or not cold calls, but, you know, talking to somebody, hey, should we have a conversation, like getting on the phone, that doesn't like creep me out anymore. So
Yeah.
it's cool.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's like Leslie was saying, like, you want to like be the person, it might feel scary, but be the person who's like going up to someone and actually like taking action for yourself. And so just because I know there's probably other people who are curious about like, oh, I'm nervous to network, here's a recipe for you to use a food metaphor to reach out. That's really easy. First, ask like, how are you doing? Don't just go in with like, hey, I want a job, can you help me? Like I get messages like that all the time, and it's not very human, and it doesn't build a connection. And so maybe start out with something like, hey, I just saw you did this really amazing campaign, or I saw you post this article on LinkedIn or like your Medium page, you know, wow, like so inspiring to me. You know, here's where I'm at. I'm a strategist. I'm sort of looking for my next move or whatever it is. You know, I'm sure you're really busy, but would you have a few minutes to just hop on like a 20-minute phone call? I'd love to hear about your journey. I'm sort of thinking about what's next. Thanks so much for your time. And just leave it at that. Like, how nice would it be if you were on the receiving end of an email like that, or someone's like giving you a compliment and like wants your advice? Like, oh, that makes you feel so good. Right?
Also how you present it. So like your subject line, when I reach out to people that I'm really like, I've seen the work, something that they've done or something that they've written in an article, I just write in the subject matter, you know, hello and a fan. And am not necessarily always asking for something, although you need an ask. Sometimes by not asking for an ask, you get a response. Because what you're doing is saying to them, and like we talk about, you really have to have an ask. So it's important, if you're going to ask something, be very specific. But if you don't, just by saying you're a fan and you're so, you know, just wanted to make sure that they knew, people immediately respond to that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. And especially if you have some kind of, like if you legit are a fan and you like are familiar with the work, like offering an insight or a comment on something specific makes it just seem like not just some BS, right?
Agreed. You know, Maya wrote, she was looking for some advice on speaking with recruiters and what techniques work. Well, we've gone over what doesn't work by, hi, here's my book, or not even the hi is in there, to being human and, hey, this is who I am, what's going on. When I'm talking to people, we're Zooming with them, I want a personality. Now I'm a headhunter, right? So I am looking for different personalities for different agencies and different situations. But if you're talking to somebody specifically at an agency, then what they're looking for is this person going to be an ad for our agency? You can't be quiet, they need to know who you are. You're dating. So that is exactly what it is. You're talking to somebody and you want them to date you. You want them to hire you. At the same token, if you don't like them, you don't have to continue the conversation. Remember, it's a two-way street. So sometimes you're in an interview and I have people come and say, oh my God, I didn't know what the recruiter wanted me to talk about. They didn't say anything. So try to take some cues from them. Try to ask questions then that are less personal and maybe about the office culture or what they're looking for, to try to turn the conversation around, to dig deeper with the recruiter on, this job seemed interesting. Can you go into a little bit about it? Or, hey, you brought me in because you saw my portfolio. Is there anything you want to go through with my portfolio, or ask me because it sounded interesting? I'd love to hear more. And sometimes asking those questions and putting them on the spot, it does help because it shows that you're interested. When you just sit there and say, hey, this is me, and you just start spewing out before I've even asked you, I might not have wanted to know that. I mean, I'll sit there and listen, but I'll make notes to myself that this person just kind of was selling themselves to me, and I didn't need that conversation. I had some other thoughts I wanted to ask them. So that would be kind of good techniques, is knowing the audience, you know. And you can tell somebody if you're talking to an executive creative director and you'd be like, I'm so nervous. Everything seems so great so far. Be honest. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. And it also kind of breaks the ice for you, so that if you're stumbling, they understand where it's coming from.
Awesome.
Yeah, and just to give you like a visual on like talking about yourself, talking to recruiters, hiring managers, like here's a little template. Sometimes people come in and they kind of like tell their whole life story in like 4 minutes at the beginning of an interview. Think about who your audience is. Like if you're talking to Success Academy, you know, share a little, here's where I came from in my career, here's where I am now, here's where I want to go next. An example of that would be like, I'm really passionate about education, and that's why I'm interested in working with you. Like bringing it back to them. So, and if the job is, you know, for example, like a brand strategist, you might talk about some of your brand experience. If it's for, you know, a specialized UX designer, you're going to talk about your UX experience, even if you're maybe an integrated designer. So just little things to think about when talking to recruiters. I think we missed a question up here from Chris. Hill, do you want to take this one?
Can you read
It
the
says,
question?
I'm looking for part-time work as a copywriter, but it seems that most recruiting agencies only deal with full-time. Is this true? How can I best approach a part-time job search, and what's the best process for working with a recruiter?
First of all, freelance is needed desperately right now. I think it's just about how you're going about your search. There's a couple of different things. It's interesting. People always think if they're writers, they should find art directors so that they have a team ready to go. I recommend building up your relationships with the people who do exactly what you do, so that when they get called for freelance and they're not available, you'll be their first call, as long as there's a connection between the two. I also would say that it's about making sure we do a whole workshop within our within our boot camp, which is basically talking about personal brand and how you're introducing yourself into the world. It's like if your website says, or your LinkedIn says full-time, maybe it needs to say freelance to full-time, or interested in, exactly what you want. Be extremely, as Kat always says, like, be intentional about what it is, put out to the world what you want. Also, when you're looking up jobs, you could put in the word part-time, full-time, temp, like really look to what you're looking for. And the other thing is when you're sending out emails, if you're open to full-time or freelance, but you're emailing about a full-time role, you could just mention that I'm really interested in getting an opportunity to know you, so I'm open to freelancing to start. There's also different avenues. Working Not Working was just bought by Fiverr, which is an opportunity for you to go on Fiverr to look for work. But your recruiters like Leslie and Kathryn are going to have something possibly. And so they should know who you are, so that you're ready, willing, and able. I also think when you're on LinkedIn, you have to look at the content which you put in. So making sure that every last thing is inside of your page. So that means if you've done B2B and you actually have it to show or speak to, make sure that word B2B is in there. If you've done fashion, or you've done technology, make sure the categories along with the categories and the mediums for each brand that you've done, because when they do a search, that's what they're going to look for. No matter what platform you put yourself on, no matter what recruiter you're talking to, make sure that they know all the specifics of this, even if it's bullet points within your resume. It's hard to find people sometimes. And if you don't give them the information they need, they won't be able to locate you.
Absolutely. And I think right now, every recruiter I know is looking for freelancers. There are many recruitment firms that deal only with freelance for the most part. So possibly you are just not familiar with them.
I do wonder, Chris, I wonder if your question was referring to like part-time as in like 20 hours a week kind of thing versus like 40 hours a week. In which case there are still freelance roles out there that are for sure part-time. I think it can be more challenging when it's a full-time role to find something that's going to be part-time. But there's definitely companies that are open to flexible work and more open to it now. So I think it's about speaking to a company first, getting to know them. Maybe you get further in the interview process and you're articulate with them about what your ideal is, and maybe they can work with you on it. So I think if something doesn't say, part-time right away, it might be worth still having a conversation and seeing if it's a fit, because if not that role, it could be something else. Let's go to
Mark's question is about flexibility as well with geography. So what's interesting is today I was told by a company that is owned by WPP that they are having everybody go back into the office starting Monday. And it's a hybrid situation. So it's 3 days a week, depending on their team. And all of their employees going back into the office must be vaccinated. So it is happening now. It's happening quickly. I have clients that are starting in January. I have some that are deciding in January what's happening. And then I have some companies that say, it works now. We want the best candidate. And if they're going to be remote, they're going to be remote. I would say 80% of my clients want people that will be able to come into the office at some point. 20% don't care. But the not caring is slowly getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So remote work is still available, but as of 2022, a lot of clients are hoping to have more in real life, in-person working situations, because they feel that the culture and the interaction is being lost, which is hurting some of the work, the casual conversations you have when you're walking through the hall, you're going to get a cup of coffee, something happens. And, all these meetings back to back and back Zooms, you don't even get to the work because everything's so scheduled. So I think a lot of companies are hoping to have you back in. It also depends on what you do. A lot of the tech specific jobs are staying remote because they don't need to be in the office. Did that answer that one, Mark? Assuming he's saying yes.
I would just add to that if you look at your holding companies, basically what they're going to do is some are going to do an overarching thing where you must come in the office X amount of days. What WPP is doing is they're saying, listen, you need to be vaccinated if you're going to come in. Possibly, I don't know, I have to look back at my note if it's being tested or vaccinated, but I think it's vaccinated. The other thing is even though they are saying it's starting on Monday, what they're also saying is that every individual agency gets to decide technically on their own. So it is not, you have to look within each agency. So if you're looking at the holding company agencies, whether it's IPG, MDC, WPP, it's about really looking at the individual companies, because that's where the CEO of WPP is saying, listen, we're going to allow you to have that ability to really make the decision that works best for you. And so that's something else for you to consider. As far as remote goes, there's certain divisions within holding companies. I know within my division where you can be completely remote. It just matters on in which division you're in exactly. As well as I'm just reading something. We did back-to-back meetings during working from home after starting with more balance. Back-to-back was a downside. Yes. And you can't even get up to go to the bathroom. I mean, let's just call it what it is. Like, you cannot go to do human things, like, which is such a problem. And I'm one of those people who'll be like, can I have 1 more minute? Can I have 1 more minute? And other people are doing it to me and I'm beyond aggravated. I'm like, I have to go. There's another meeting. And so what's happening also with this at-home thing is, I do think people should have choices, but more so than anything, I think that we need to offer what is being offered elsewhere. But our global CCO, Rob Riley, was saying, like, it's nice to be together, to be celebratory, like to have a celebration, right? To celebrate the successes, to be together if we can. It's nice to also, when we have to be, going through different, if we're in a pitch. So it's really about selecting those moments where it's truly important to have that sense of connection.
Great. So I think Nancy's question is like a really important one that I know a lot of people juggle. How do you recommend addressing gaps in a creative career?
I saw one recently that said they were literally put on their LinkedIn, and they said that they were being, and I've seen it for, whether it's a dad or mom or whatever, feels good to you, a caretaker, that's what they put in their LinkedIn. And I actually really loved it because it was saying what was true without me having to question it, and allowed me to be honest about it. And I think these days people appreciate it. And there's certain companies these days that are really taking to heart about it. Like, there's a company that Leslie knows the owner really well, called Second Shift. And that's specifically for women who are only able to take that second shift. They can't necessarily take that normal 9 to 5. And then there's companies.
This speaks to Chris's question as well.
Yes.
Just wanted to call that out.
And there's also companies for moms called the Mom Project. There's Power to Fly. So there's organizations that are working with you to help you kind of get those hours that you need to get to make sure that you get in and are able to showcase, okay, I had a little bit of a break, and they can help you manage that break. But I also think you could be really creative about it on your resume, on your LinkedIn, in the conversations you have. These human moments bring experiences together with other people, and it's how you build the relationships with others, by being completely vulnerable, I think.
It's funny because it actually, what you're saying makes sense. And I asked the question because I had a big gap where I was actually writing fiction. I was having kids as well, but I was home, and I'm publishing my second book next year. However, it feels like, it still feels like a disadvantage. So I'm wondering about, like, how do you spin that to be the advantage that it actually is? The other issue with that is in, taking time away, the people, your colleagues and peers, sort of everyone moves on. So your network kind of collapses. So it's interesting, I'm just trying to find ways to come back at it. I am actually back in the industry, not where I want to be, but I was lucky to get a toehold and come back in. But I'm just, I'm trying to find that story, and just wondering if you've heard, interesting ways that people have kind of returned.
I have that
great comeback.
Usually we have the conversation with women who went off to have a family, whereas today my conversation was with a man who is coming back into the industry after 5 years, who was doing a lot of work in different areas outside of the United States that really had nothing to do with advertising, but had some really interesting things to do with life. And he put that down on his LinkedIn and in his resume because it was interesting. And I feel that when you are a creative, specifically in advertising, I feel that your writing, whether it's a book, film, art, he was actually doing landscape architecture and such. I find that people find it interesting. So showcasing it in your portfolio, showcasing it on LinkedIn, and showing your side hustles that have turned into a project that you wanted to fulfill is really important. So whether it's being the caregiver, and that's as important as writing your book and being on a second novel. I mean, people are very interested in that and they want to find out more about that. And to the question previously about what do recruiters look for, they look for interesting people. They look for people that can add to the conversation and add to the idea pool that they're working in, and be engaging. So I feel that by making it a very strong point in your story, rather than trying to walk around it, I think that would be helpful. And getting a foothold in, you know what? You're not going to go in at the level that you once were, and you're not going to go in at a level that maybe you would have been in if you had been in the business, because you haven't managed people, or you haven't overseen people, or you don't have some of the new technology under your belt at the moment. But that's okay, because you're not starting over, you're starting, in the midst, but you've also produced something for yourself in your life, whether it's your children or a book or what have you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, I feel like it all becomes part of your story. So Jacob, I saw your question about freelance work. I put a bunch in the chat just now. There's many. It kind of depends on what your specialty is, but the ones in the chat are ones that I know of many people using. Let's see. I know we only have a couple minutes, so I'm trying to get to everybody's question. Let's see. Okay. Andrew says, I'm looking to switch jobs around January, February. Is it better to start talking to recruiters now or to wait? I say start the conversations now, start reaching out to people. I would say when we get into December and honestly, right after Thanksgiving, usually if a recruiter doesn't have something right away, they're preparing for the holidays themselves, they're trying to finish 2021 budgets, so they're going to be a little crazy. But I think there's no harm, especially in the beginning of November before Thanksgiving, reaching out and just saying, hey, I'm going to be looking in the new year, just wanted to connect now. I think that's great. Anyone else have anything to add?
I think that you want to build relationships regardless. And my belief system is that you build relationships even when you don't need them. Even at the most, you build them when you don't need them, because then you're not coming from a place of anxiety. For those of you that get that way, I do, which is why I'm saying that. And I love making connections, but there's always this moment where my saboteurs in my head, they're going to know that you're trying to make connections with them for this reason. When people reach out to me when they don't know who I am, I'm happy to be of service to them. If I see that there's absolutely no direct way, they live in a completely different region and they're a volleyball player, although I love volleyball, and they're looking for a job in, space technically, which is how it feels, I'm not necessarily going to connect with them. But if they're in some roundabout way, just wanting to have connections, I think about it being of service to them, because then maybe there's someone in my group of connections that it will be helpful to them. And I also feel what you give is what you get back kind of thing. So I always look at the connections almost as being a mentor without actually mentoring them. You're part of their networking mentorship moment. And I also think that building those relationships now when you really need it, you're not going to be behind the process. You're just starting, and you're going to come from a place of real, to Kathryn's point earlier, really telling your narrative. You can't tell it until you figure out what it is for yourself. So build the relationship, but be prepared with your narrative in advance of where you come from, where you're at now, and where you want to go.
Awesome.
Well said.
Yeah. And then we got this question from Alessandra. Hi, how do you deal with lack of new produced pieces on your portfolio? I think this is a challenge a lot of people have.
Mhm.
What would you say?
My feeling is I like to see a portfolio from a creative. even a strategist, anybody, anything that you can add to your book. I don't have to see what's produced. I want to see your taste and your ability and a variety. So if that means that you have to put spec work in or go back to old work that you feel looks dated and give it a nice makeover, there at no level is it not okay to add work that hasn't been produced, because your produced work might not be as good as some of the ideas that didn't get produced.
Yeah, most of my work, produced work usually like is so watered down by all, the process. And also like I've been freelancing for the last 2 years. And when you freelance, you don't really produce much, right? But I feel like I'm in a level that, and I was in one agency for such a long time. I was at Publicis for 16 years. So I feel like it's almost I'm starting over. It's, I lost contact with, I haven't talked to you, Leslie, in 16 years. So
I know. Oh my God.
Oh, keep going. Sorry.
I feel like, so when I'm showing my portfolio, it's almost like, yeah, I'd be freelancing and that's the account that I feel like I'm starting over. I'm learning again, how to get, I'm trying to go into the marketing again. And I've been back and forth to Brazil too. So it hasn't been the ideal situation.
I think that what it's really important to note is how you put your portfolio together. Also, it's saying like, so for my brother, for example, he worked at Deutsche for like 14 years, but he left 3 or 4 times and went back. And what he did eventually with his portfolio was he still put some of his favorite pieces, but it's how he changed the book. I actually had him work with Pimp Your Portfolio to help fix it and like try to make the actual site itself be engaging. So it was working with the user experience of it all so that people could see that you were still in touch with like what's good creativity. So that if something doesn't necessarily look new or fresh on your site, they'll be able to get in there and they'll be like, okay, they obviously have some sense of like what's cool, what's interesting, what's smart work.
Yeah.
So that's one way to do it. So you could check out Pimp My Portfolio. And I had him Pimp My Portfolio. Kat will put it in the chat. The other thing is what he did is we had him do like animated boxes for everything that he was doing so that it was like movement. So the user experience was even more fun. And some people, what I noticed they do is they'll put in like, executive creative director work, and maybe, associate creative director work. If you're looking at that, you could just show the career journey of your work. You could do that. I actually haven't seen it that way specifically, but it could be an interesting way for you to show that things might be from time. The other thing is you could put pieces in your work and list yourself and list other people. So you could write freelance, as long as you get an okay on it. You could list freelance creative and then list the people who have done the actual work. And so you're building a connection. And that's another way to put the portfolio together as well.
Okay. Hey, that's great.
Yeah, and
so much.
Awesome. I put in the chat too, like for you, Alessandra, and anyone else, if you need a partner to help you put that together, make ads with me as well. If you need to find someone. Okay, I think, hey, Sunita, do we have a minute to answer one more question that's in the chat, or do we need to?
Sure, go for it.
Okay, I think it's a short one. So our agency's seeking more freelancers at the moment. I'm trying to find a permanent job, but most jobs seem to be keeping it project-based. And this is from Joseph. I think it's interesting because we have like Hillary here from the in-house perspective and also like Leslie and I. So I'd be curious to hear what you think. You want to go, Hill?
Oh yeah, just repeat the question one more time, okay? Because I was just responding in a chat with somebody.
Oh, it's all good.
All right.
Our agency seeking more freelancers or full-time right now?
I would say both. And if you're not landing something, I really believe it's about how you're going about looking for a job. I really truly do right now. I feel like it's about how you're putting your work together, how you're engaging your audience, and it's connecting to the people. Because like if you've been out of the business for X amount of years, you just have to go back to those people and re-engage. And it's uncomfortable, but it's really what you have to do. I think that they're looking for everything. I really do. They just need talent. And they need talent really bad. They're calling it the Great Resignation for a reason. They're calling it the talent crisis for a reason. And so my belief system is that it's really how you craft your narrative, whether that's online in a portfolio, you know, how you're sharing your work. If you're a musician and you want to be able to, like, I had one time I had a musician come to talk to me. She wanted to be in the music world. And I told her to put a resume in an 8-track cassette tape because I figured that people would be, who are running the company or at the music house, would like appreciate her sense of humor. So I think it's really about being true to yourself, who you are, so that when you do meet them, it's easier for you to connect with them. But the work is there right now. And if you're not hearing right away, it's just a matter of sometimes timing, right? It will come. I promise you it will come. You're here, you're listening, you're asking questions, it will come. And I also believe that it's about really honing in on how you're looking for your work and how you're presenting yourself on that work and the engaging. Leslie?
I think I was, no, I was doing the same thing, but I have to be 100% honest. I was listening to my daughter behind the wall ask me questions and try to like text her on her iPhone. So I'm not gonna lie, I was having a mom moment there. So I have to pass on this one because I was looking like I was engaged, but I was helping out a 9-year-old. Sorry about that.
The question was, Leslie, go ahead, Kat, you go first. I
was gonna jump in just on the like recruitment headhunter side. Yeah, honestly, we're seeing both. I think most of our work personally, like just in our business, we do a lot more full-time than freelance right now. But I am seeing both. I'm seeing both freelance to perm, actually a lot of freelance to perm. I don't know if that's just because we work with a lot of smaller agencies. And so they kind of like to test people out because it's a smaller shop and you on both ends want to make sure like this is the right fit for you. But I'm seeing both. So yeah.
Yeah, I could jump in now because no. I would say that majority of clients right now will only go direct to direct hire so that they don't lose a candidate. That it is the most that they feel that if they hire you right away, that they've got you. But preference is usually to freelance to date before they marry. And it might not be long-term, but they want to make sure it's a good fit, especially now that everybody wants to be remote and clients are trying to be as flexible as possible. Yet I've got clients saying, I won't lose anybody if they say, yes, I'm going full-time. And they feel like that commitment will keep them there. Yet doesn't confirm that it doesn't guarantee somebody's not going to jump. So there are, I think equally we're busy with freelance, full-time, temp to perm, or people say they only want freelance for the position. They realize how valuable that candidate is. They don't want to lose them to another firm for freelance, and they will offer full-time just to make sure that they can keep that person with them.
Yeah, and so as we close out today, we want to just share a quote with you. So we like to share this one because this process can be like Luisa's saying, like fearful of negative feedback, like, oh my God, it's a lot, job hunting can be a lot. So they were powerful, not because they weren't scared, but because they went on so strongly despite the fear. So we know that this process can bring up a lot of like inner demons. It's really nerve-wracking. And we want you to know that like, you can do it. We're here, I just put our contact information in the chat. So we're here for you as a resource on the recruiting end and on the coaching end. And if you enjoyed today, we're going to do like a small version of our group coaching program in 2022. So I put that link in the chat if you want to just like be notified like when we're having it. So, but we're so grateful for all of you for being here with us. This is so fun for us, and we love doing it. So, and we couldn't do it without all of you here. So,
and the
thank you.
sideshow very much thanks you, ladies. Thank you so much for all the
Yes.
information and being here.
Thank you for having
Yes,
us.
thank you
Thank you for
so
having
much.
us.
You're
Yeah.
very welcome. Good night, everybody.
Night.
Thank you.
Bye.